Matt here, 87.6. Good morning, Andrew, on the radio, and Matthew Dixon. Hello.
Good morning to you too.
Now, let's get into it. Smartphones. We know there's a lot of competition in the world when it comes to the smartphone market, but what are some of the latest statistics showing, Matt?
Look, I'm actually blown away by this, Andrew. The stats scare me. Samsung's still on top. Good luck to them. They've been doing well. They've got about 20% market share from Q1 2021. But what blows me away, it's absolutely unbelievable in my mind, Samsung alone in the first quarter of this year sold 76.5 million phones. That's just an incredible number, I think. And they've really done well. They've really done well. They've got the flagship phones in their range, but their mid-tier and even their lower end of the market phones are still pretty impressive phones. They've been producing them at incredibly reasonable prices. They've got 5G phones throughout the range, so they've done very well to hold on to that top spot. Or it's been a bit shaky there. There've been a couple of other challenges nipping away at their heels, and they've even knocked them off a month or two here and there. But for the first quarter, they're back into number one. Apple, which surprises many people in Australia, Apple are number two. Many people in Australia, because Apple's very strong here, assume that Apple's number one across the world, but they're number two across the world. They've got 15.5% market share. Then you've got three Chinese manufacturers, Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo, round out the top five. But even Vivo at number five sold 38.3 million phones, Tony. I just get blown away by these numbers. So
it's phenomenal.
It is. The big growth I think we'll see throughout this year will be really around 5G, in particular for Apple, because Apple brought out their first 5G phones at the end of last year. So it's only the current model of Apple phones that are 5G. So I think we'll still see those upgrades going through in 5G. And overall, which is great news for technology people around the world, overall in the first quarter of this year, there was 22% year-on-year growth compared to last year. And when you think about last year, it was only just at the beginning of the pandemic, so only really just getting into March at the very early stages of that. So last year presumably was normal for the first quarter of last year. So for this year, first quarter of this year to be 22% up, and even this quarter compared to the last quarter of 2020 was up by 26%. So very strong growth in smartphone sales, and Samsung still number one.
Yeah. That's why my last four phones, Matt, have all been Samsung phones. I told you the story. When I went to go and get my first iPhone, I think it was the 3G.
Right.
And I swore black and blue I was going to get an iPhone. I was going to get an iPhone. I walked out with the Samsung S2, I think it was.
Right.
It was $20 cheaper a month, Matt.
Yeah. And certainly that's something that Samsung have been, over the years, have been very competitively priced.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. The deals when it comes to Samsung, I'm still hanging out. I reckon my next phone's going to be the Samsung Fold.
Well, I've got two of my staff. I've got two different folds, one that folds the Z Fold and one that folds out, and they absolutely love them. And I must admit, they're very cool to play with.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's they look very cool, and I reckon that's going to be my next phone. Because like when we all had the flip phone, we all did the cool moves with them. That's why I want it, so I can go back doing the cool moves.
If you can just get it right, you can pull it out of your pocket and just flick your wrist in just the right way that the phone will exit and flip out and be ready to use. If you can do that, that's a very cool move.
Oh, no, the classic holster. That's what everyone wants to do, the classic holster. We need to bring that one back. All right, now, if you didn't get to fly on a Concorde, don't worry. You may get to still travel supersonic.
You may. United Airlines has just announced that they're going to buy 15 new supersonic airliners, and by the year 2029, which we may not be travelling internationally until 2029 at this rate, Andrew, but by the year 2029, they'll have those planes back up in the air. Now, of course, the Concorde first started flying with passengers on board in 76. That went through to 2003. Lots of people got the chance to fly on that. Some people obviously didn't. But this will be a return. There's no airlines that fly supersonic at the moment. You've got to be a jet fighter if you want to fly supersonic, and I'm not really that keen on going through the training to do that, Tony. But getting on a supersonic plane sounds pretty cool. And we're not far off it when you fly on a normal A380 or a 747. Most of those fly at about Mach 0.9, 0.8, that sort of speed. So you're getting up close there. But this particular plane, it's called the Overture, and it will be flying at speeds of about Mach 1.7. We're talking about 1,805 kilometres an hour. They typically fly pretty high. A normal airliner, international airliner, flies maybe 35,000 feet. These typically fly at 60,000 feet. And the main reason they do that is less air resistance. As you double speed, you quadruple air resistance. And that puts a pretty big tax on the actual cost of your fuel when you start flying at Mach 1.7, for example. The other minor advantage is as temperature decreases, so when you get up to those sort of heights, you're probably talking about minus 55, minus 57 degrees Celsius. When the temperature decreases, the speed of sound decreases. So you can say that you're flying at supersonic speeds at a lower actual speed. So you get down to lower speeds compared to, say, what you would be at ground level where the temperature might be a bit higher. But anyway, all exciting. The main thing is if you want to fly from, say, London to New York, at the moment that's about 6.5 hours. That would cut that trip down to 3.5 hours. I'm not sure if they're talking about flights between Australia and the US, for example. They're probably not. They're probably more using it for those shorter flights like that New York to London. But if it did fly, say, from LA to Sydney, that's normally about a 13-hour flight. That would turn that into maybe a 7-hour flight. And I think that'd be pretty cool.
There you go. Why bother driving Sydney to Melbourne when you can just go, bugger, I'll go to LA. Yeah. I'll just get on a plane and go to LA. But if you live in the States, Matt, and you have relos over in Europe and, there's no escaping that. Oh, just come over. It's only a quick trip.
Only a few hours.
Yeah, it's only a couple of hours. Don't worry about it. You'll be here by dinner. It's all... There's no escaping that one. That's the ultimate one, though. At
those sort of speeds, and I haven't got this data at hand to say definitely, but I think you're actually managing to stay ahead of the rotation of the Earth. So in other words, you might fly and beat the time zones, if you like, so that you're actually arriving there before the time that you actually left in the local time zone. So, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we know there's all sorts of screens. So you got the curved ones, you got the rollable ones, but now you get a stretchable one.
Stretchable OLED. Who thought? I mean, even just having some of the stuff with rollable and curved sounds pretty cool, but Samsung have now got a prototype stretchable OLED. It can stretch up to 30% in either direction or at the same time, in vertical and horizontal. Now, I assume that they're not talking about making a screen that you put on your wall that looks like a 50-inch, and then when your wife walks out of the room, it suddenly turns into an 80-inch TV. I assume it's more talking about using them, for example, in some sort of biometrics. So you might have some monitoring of your health, some heart monitoring, some sort of monitoring you need to do. Even an athlete might need to monitor what they're doing. So you'd stick on this OLED like a Band-Aid, and you'd stick that on there. As your body moved around, it stretched, it changed shape slightly, then this would stay on there and you could still monitor that while being on there. So forget about the idea of having a smartwatch and monitoring your heart rate and monitoring your VO2 while you're out for a run. You'd literally stick a patch on, and that patch would have an OLED screen that would move and stretch around as your body moved and stretched. I think it's an example, Andrew, that we see sometimes in technology where someone said, hey, I wonder if we can do this. And they've done it, and then they go, now what do we do with it? And then they'll start to come up with some applications of it.
You know what? There'd be some guy in the end I'll have going, don't worry, fellas, I got you here.
I'll come up with something to do with it. Once you work out how to make it work, we'll work out a use for it.
Yeah. That's man's classic line. Don't worry about it. I got you. They'll figure it out. You'll be watching sports by the end of it. It's all good. Yeah. Now, I know when I was a kid, video games, classic video games, well, they weren't classic when you and I were a kid, Matt, but
they were new technology.
Video games. What's that?
They were new technology when we were kids.
They were new technology when we were kids. Now, I had an Atari 2600.
Yeah.
And Space Invaders was my game. What'd you play on? Were you a Sega kid? Or?
No. I love the Atari stuff. And I think Space Invaders, wasn't bad, but I think Asteroids, and I'm just trying to remember whether Asteroids was Sega or Atari. I think it was Atari.
That was Atari, yeah.
Yeah, and I used to love my Asteroids. I thought that was pretty cool. And just the fact that you could sit there and spin around and shoot, but then you could start to move around your control. That was a bit freaky when your actual shooting device could start to move. What a concept was that?
instead of just going left and right.
Yeah.
I'm spewing back because I reckon as a kid I could have won the Space Invaders World Championships.
Where were they? Why didn't we have them back then?
I know, right? I know, because I actually used to be able to start the game at 0-0 and clock the score. So I would go all the way through until 0-0-0-0, and then I would play again. And I don't think there was ever anyone that I ever saw that could do that on Space Invaders.
I remember kids like you. I'd walk into the local corner store and there'd be this kid playing, and you knew that there was no point hanging around because he was going to be there for hours. That was you.
That was me on Space Invaders.
You hog.
I know, right? I know. Whenever friends of mine used to come around and see me playing Space Invaders, we had a switch on our Atari that used to make the ship go from big to small.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I'd always play on the small ship. And all of a sudden, my mates would start playing with the button that would change me to big. So all of a sudden, they go, "Oh, look, you're dead. Let's go now."
Good. I'm glad they got around your skills.
Yeah. It used to cheese me off. But apparently, Atari are about to release their first gaming console in 25 years.
I can't believe they didn't ask you to be an ambassador after knowing your skills. I know, right? They should have. But no, they are. They're about to release their first game, and it is called a classic video game console now because we're a few years past it. But it is interesting. You've got huge competition with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. And this is an expensive PlayStation or expensive gaming console, $850. So it's $100 more expensive than the PlayStation 5. And people see that as being so expensive, fairly expensive. But it's kind of, I'm not sure they've got the model right. What they've effectively done is they've said, look at this cool Atari gaming console, which is really just a computer. You can put Windows on it, you can put Linux, you can put a Google operating system on there. There is a default Atari Linux operating system that's on there, but people can put other things on there and then essentially play from a normal PC game library. So it's got some arcade games, some of the old classics like you talk about on there as well. But more than anything, I think people will just use it to play like it was a normal PC. So I'm not convinced it's going to be that successful because people that want a powerful PC to play games with, they go and buy a powerful PC and play games with it. I'm not sure if they want to have a console that is dressed up as a console but really just a fairly powerful PC. But anyway, who knows? The Atari name might be strong enough with your generation, with my generation. It might be strong enough to bring people to buy that. But there's a lot of competition out there in the gaming console space, and it's not about the games really. It's about not about the gaming console, it's about the games. What can you play on it? And when it's just a normal PC, you can play a whole range of those normal PC games, but you can play them on a PC as well.
Absolutely. I have a feeling it's going to be one of these kind of kitsch factor type things.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Even I love playing Space Invaders, and Atari actually have a couple of retro mini kind of consoles that you can go buy for $99. So, it's going to be interesting to see the as you said, the enthusiasts from our generation kind of really dip their toes in this because they've already got their gaming PCs. They've already gone and spent $2,000.
That's right. And if they want to have that old bit of classic, like you say, you can buy those cheap sort of $100 ones that you can go and play some of those old classic games with those old terrible graphics.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole experience, Matt. The terrible graphics. That's what you play classic video games for.
That's right. That's it. The only reason I play classic video games is because it's the only thing I can beat my kids at. They're so old and old-fashioned, those games. They go, what are you doing here? And I go, oh, there's a trick to do here. Watch this.
Yeah.
And then I can beat them.
Yeah, I know the shortcut here. Do you know there's a stalk here in Mario Brothers that takes you to another one? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The only problem is it only takes them one or two plays before they start to beat me anyway because they see all the tricks and away they go.
Yeah, that's it. And then you chuck it away for another 5 years. Yeah, if you had $186 billion, Matt, and you're the second richest guy on the planet, what would you do with your money?
Well, look, if you're about to retire, then you'd be weighing up your options. Bit of golf, maybe playing bridge, or, go to space. What the heck?
Why not?
And that's exactly what Jeff Bezos is about to do. There's a bit of a race on with the three big space tourism companies. You've got Jeff Bezos, who's got his Blue Origin company. You've got Elon Musk with SpaceX, and you've got Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic. So all three think and I think they're probably all right, there's this huge market for space tourism. But Jeff Bezos is going to be the first one of those three to say, not only are we going to take people into space, we're going to start doing it with real people, and I'm going to be one of the first. So on the 20th of July, Jeff Bezos is going to jump in one of his Blue Origin space rockets, take his brother, why not? Come along for the ride, bro, and go up there to be not only part of the first crew to go up into space, but certainly the first of those billionaire owners to go up into space. But there is some good news, Andrew, for you and I. There's a public auction. They're opening up to the public one spot. You can actually put a bid in to be another person on that trip to go up and hang around with Mark Bezos and Jeff Bezos and chat about what you do with your billions. And it's not too expensive. At the moment, the auction is only up to US $2.8 million, not billion, $1 million. Now, I must admit, between now and July 20, I think that'll go up. My estimation is someone's going to pay at least $30 million for that. But at the moment, we can get a bid in there and say, hey, we'll go and join my old mates and go up there for a quick spin around in space.
Look, man, I reckon if you want to finance at least 90% of this bid, because I could probably finance about 0.0001% of it. I reckon I could chuck in about $5. That's just...
Okay, so start that crowdfunding now. There's your first $5. You've only got another 2.8 or so to go.
I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to pass the training. I don't think they'd have a suit big enough for me. Do they make spacesuits in 4XL?
Well, the idea is for space tourism. I mean, to be a NASA astronaut, there's some incredible things you've got to go through from a physical perspective. But space tourism, can you imagine saying it's going to cost you millions of dollars to go up space? Oh, sorry, you didn't pass the weight limit. I'm not sure they'd have too many customers, and certainly not too many happy customers. So they've probably got to ditch the whole you've got to be super fit to go into space concept.
Yeah, I know. And they got to get the gift shop right, Matt, because everyone needs that. All I went to space was, and I bought back this T-shirt kind of T-shirt
right.
after.
And you can't get them for someone else. You can't have people that are pretenders walking around in the, I went into space with Jeff, my mate, and have 50 people wearing it around.
That's exactly right, because you feel really ripped off. Hey, this shirt cost me $30 million, man. You don't understand what I went through to get this shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.